Wow, something exploded. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Monthly Mayhem TRX6 OMG63. If you're not familiar with Monthly Mayhem, the purpose is that Matt from the Scale Builders Guild and myself take a vehicle and try and transform it into doing something that it was never intended to do. In this version, we took the Traxxas TRX6 6x6 Mercedes AMG 63 and we turned it into a top speed machine, or at least that was the goal. In this version of the Monthly Mayhem, Matt and I outlined a number of rules to try and keep things interesting, but I'm going to go over just some of the most important ones. The first and most important rule was that we needed to use the motor and ESC supplied by Traxxas to us. And in this case, it was the VXL 8S ESC and the 540XL motor. So we couldn't put in a different motor or multiple motors, bigger motors, anything like that. The whole point was to use the same motor for both of us. Next, we had to use the stock body, and only reasonable trimming was allowed. So no cutting the roof off of it or doing some wild and crazy thing to make it the most aerodynamic thing in the world. We needed to keep the stock body in some sort of reasonable fashion. The next rule we laid out was that both of the rear axles needed to be powered. And lastly, there's a 3 mph bonus to the top speed for whoever gets voted the best overall style. So Matt and I both really tried to keep that in mind this whole time. And with how tight our speeds were throughout this series, neither of us let that get out of sight. Any decision that we made to the vehicle on the outside, we had to keep styling in mind, and that played a big part. So trying to cover things up or put a big wedge in the front or anything like that, it was just instantly axed because that's going to look very bad, and both of us want to win those 3 bonus points. So you have to really keep those things in mind because all of that plays into one big picture for what you see here. Going back and recapping the weeks though, in week 1, we had stock vehicles. We both tested the stock speed. This came with a 2-speed in factory form, but in the top gear, this thing did 11 miles an hour on 3S with the stock brushed motor and ESC. In week 2, we both got the new ESCs in there, started our modifications, and in week 2, I got up to 54 miles an hour. And Matt was only able to get up to 43. However, the very next week, I only gained 2 miles an hour, getting to 56. Where Matt jumped all the way up to 57, stealing the lead from me. And then last week, week 4, or crash week, I was able to just crack that barrier and hit the big 6-0 with this machine. Where Matt had a really bad crash that almost looked like it was going to take him out of this competition. So his top speed still sat at 57 miles an hour, although he was able to post 56 miles an hour during last week's testing. And then we get on to this week's final modifications. And you can see here, things have changed a little bit, but not drastically for me. I did a lot of finishing and tweaking and redesigning, reworking some things. Last week during testing, once I started to get up to those upper speeds, this car definitely started to feel a little bit light and less responsive in the steering. So I felt like I needed to add a little bit of downforce in the front. I did that in a couple of ways. First of all, I moved the ESC from the side mounted location that I had, and I made a new location in the very front of the vehicle, trying to put a little bit of weight towards the front. But also, since I removed the inner wheel wells, I also wanted to kind of clear these side rock sliders, usually considered. I wanted to free those of obstruction, so getting the ESC out of there, and then on the passenger side, I removed the receiver box totally. And then I moved the receiver underneath of that new battery tray that I had made the previous week. And speaking of that battery tray, I actually remade it again this week. I made a lighter weight version, but I also moved some mounting points to give myself a little bit more room because this week I'm gonna go to 6S. At least that's the plan. So I needed a little bit more room for that larger battery pack. Also, to try and add a little bit more downforce, I added a large splitter to this front air dam. It's this lip here that comes out from the lower portion of that air dam. That way when air hits the front and it tries to go down, it can't, pushing the front of the vehicle down a little bit, and the air is forced to go either up or around. The splitter that I added has got some significant length to it, so I also added some scale tie rods going down to hold up the front of it. That was both for style and for function. I designed the splitter in Fusion 360. It's made of some very lightweight plastic with some 3D printed adapters that go behind the air dam that attach to both the face of the air dam and the lower splitter, and it helps keep everything in this front system nice and rigid to itself. I've always checked the motor temperatures while running this. In between runs, I would hit it with my infrared temp gun, and I could see that I'd get into the 130s generally after a number of pulls. But going to 6S, adding that power to that motor, I can see the temps wanting to creep up further. So I added the Traxxas 540XL motor heat sink that snaps onto that motor to help dissipate the heat. And rather than just going with the heat sink alone, I also added a Wild Turbo Fan 40mm fan. I designed up a quick mount, cut it out of ABS on my Stepcraft CNC router, mounted my whole cooling solution up, and now we have a fairly rowdy fan mounted on top. It is not quiet and it moves some serious air. My next big project was the rear aero package. This is a lot for style, but some for performance. This thing is big and aggressive. Now, as you can see here, the two center ducts of this diffuser, the ones that are most between the rear tires, they've got a much more aggressive upswept design. So they'll channel air kind of off the tail of this much smoother than the other ones. The others, which are mostly blocked by the tires, are much flatter. I did this to try and reduce the amount of downforce that I think my previous diffuser plate was beginning to add. Beyond that, the rest of the changes that I made were purely cosmetic. You can't miss the big Dale Earnhardt number 3s on the door, the AMG style OMG that we have on the tail section. We've got a Hoonigan-esque Monthly Mayhem across the front of that air dam. A Cletus reference Do It for Dale here on the end caps of my rear splitter. My locked diff warning on the underside. And I think my most favorite is the Snail Builders Guild across the wing here, with an additional "No, I'm that guy." Because if you didn't know, the URL to Matt's YouTube channel is I'm That Guy. And the final change that I made to the look was that I sanded the factory roll cage down and then shot it with some black spray paint. I think the overall look that I was going for on this is very NASCAR Truck Series drag racer, which I didn't really think out through the process. It just kind of evolved into my own version of the Dale truck. And I do want to thank Matt as well. While he and I go back and forth at the competition, this is a very friendly and fun thing between us. We talk constantly during these things. We tell each other what we're doing half the time. We really enjoy these competitions together, and that's really the point of it. But of course, we both want to win. So that's about enough talking for this week, though. This is the finale. I haven't driven the truck yet. I'm gonna get the batteries charged, get everything ready to go, and we're gonna go test this thing. So let's do it. All right, guys, it's go time. At the test spot, the truck is ready to go. I've done all of my stationary shots. I'm gonna go right to 6S. I'm not gonna do any 4S test hits. The battery's in there. I just gotta plug it in, turn it on and go. I am legitimately nervous for this. My main concern is actually the shutdown. I have to try and get up to speed under control and then be able to slow down and decelerate within radio range. And that is the trickiest part of this. I don't have enough road to just let it coast out if I lose reception. I brought a fire extinguisher just in case. I created a checklist to make sure that I got everything done beforehand. I think we're ready to go. Truck's plugged in. Loud fans are on. 24.9. That's a lot of juice. All right, all cameras recording. Phone's recording the run. First 6S test. Cars are clear, here we go. Whoa! Wow! Something exploded. Oh! both my rear diffusers exploded. Oh yes! New top speed. Yes! Yes! '63. Yes! First run with exploding diffuse. Yes! Oh, I'm guessing my rear two tires grew at speed and came up and touched those rear diffusers and blew them apart. Let's see if we can go grab them. We did it for Dale. All right, let's reset cameras and do test number 2. Let's check temps. 95. Keeping temps low with the fan. Here we go. Sending it down the road. Ooh, something doesn't sound good. Uh-oh. I think we might have damaged the spur. Send it anyway, see what it does. Traffic's clear again. We're going on the far side of the road to avoid that dip. Here we go, going live. Uh-oh. I got no power. Yep, spur's gone, and I'm dead in the road. Not far from home. I'm gonna go get it fixed. Since I'm back at the house, I'm gonna change it here, and I'm gonna get greedy and jump up in pinion gear to a 16. Our last chance to go as fast as we can. Transmission access panel. So glad I put that in there. Okay, truck is fixed. Just left the house. Sweating my butt off because I did it in the garage instead of in the house, and the air conditioning. Jumped up from a 13 tooth to a 16 tooth pinion. Went back with the 45 tooth spur gear. My last one of those. So if anything happens, we're going to the 39 tooth spur gears, which I did bring with me, and I have all the tools to fix the truck with me. 63 currently. Bigger gear. Come on, 64. Here we go. Now, getting up on the tires. All right, reset the speed. Here we go. Oh my God, this tire is so ballooned. Look at this. Oh, I've got to vent it. This thing is built so much heat. It's the only one like that. What the? Wow. All right, we're just gonna poke it. We'll see what that does. God, the motor's only 90. It's so much cooler with all that air going over it. God, it's working so well. Let's see if we can see signs of rubbing anywhere. Oh wow. And our axle, that axle end is in really bad shape too. I got a ton of play. The tire has almost blown that housing. Okay, axle's as fixed as I can get it. I switched that tire that was having the bead issue to the rear. I don't think I'm gonna have time to go re-glue. We're gonna try and get in it, stay in it longer, see if it'll climb up in speed. Oh, bicycled. Or tricycled, technically. In it longer though. What's it say? Oh, 63. Let's check the tires. Oh, we're still building a ton of pressure. All right, we'll just see if trying to stab some holes in it does anything. Reset cameras and try it again. Phone is set to 0 and recording. Send it down the road. All right, traffic's clear, here we go. Bringing it back, getting it out of the way. Let's see what the speed was. Yes! Yes! New top speed. 65. I've officially exceeded my expectations. 64 was my goal. We hit 65. I'm so happy. Yes, I am so happy. With the rest of the aero completed, this truck is so solid. This challenge has been the absolute best. Before we finish this up, after this video, you have to go to Proline's Instagram account. And on there, go to their Instagram stories and there's going to be a poll. And that is where you're going to vote between Matt and I for who wins the style points. So go there, submit your vote. Whoever wins that gets 3 extra mile per hour added to their final score. Being it's kind of drag style, we've got to see what it'll do from a dead stop, right? This has been the absolute most fun challenge. Thanks most of all to Matt. He is just the best partner to do these challenges with. Couldn't imagine doing these series with anybody else. Again, thanks to him. And a big thanks to Traxxas for giving us all the stuff to do this ridiculous challenge that I had so much fun with. Don't forget to go vote, and here's just my version of bribery to try and win some votes. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for finishing another Monthly Mayhem with us, and we'll see you on the next one.